Welcome everybody to another episode of Resilient Riches. For our business owners, we're going to teach you today how to get to the next level of your business and your life. Business ownership is really complicated, it's really confusing, and there is no roadmap to success. But we all know one thing, it comes down to mindset, where your mind is and what's actually set there. And if we're trying to get past that mindset, I find that we always need coaches, we always need guides, we always need mentors to get us through that. So we thought of no one better than Dr. Nona Djavid from California that's going to talk to us about how to elevate yourself from where you are today to get you to the next level. Especially, we're going to talk specifically to business owners or people who are trying to get into business ownership, and we'll go through those processes. But Nona, can you give us your background and go from there? I know we share some Persian blood, which is always cool to see.
Excited to be here. Yeah, a bit about my background. I actually, I feel like entrepreneurship was when I moved here from Iran to the United States. I was 16 years old. And I remember the only thing I was really good at was actually math. And I didn't speak a word of English when I first moved, but I did know math. And so quickly after I picked up just enough English, I realized I could teach the neighbor's kid math. And so that's where I actually began. I began tutoring in my neighborhood. And then later I realized I need to leverage my time because I was teaching one kid at a time and I was getting paid X dollar amount at the time. And then I picked out the kids that were smarter or better in math. And I go, hey, because they were sending me their kids, all the neighbors were sending me their kids. I go, can you start tutoring this kid in math and I will pay you X dollar amount. So I started to learn what leverage was like and what scaling was like when I first started in entrepreneur. That was the first example. And then funny story, when I ended up at Berkeley and I was studying neurology, and then later I went to chiropractic school, I had this little underground tutoring business that was going on. It's obviously a Mickey Mouse operation. However, it supported my education at the time.
So if there's ever a revolution in Iran, you know how to build underground operations. There is what you're saying.
Yeah.
No problem.
In math.
For math.
There's probably a big underground community of math learners in Iran too that actually need to learn something instead of being radicalized. Whatever. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
That I think the Ayatollah is not a great guy.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of math, I feel like, can probably help the economy, I'm sure, to some degree.
I agree. Don't give money to terrorism, I think, is a really good math equation.
To start with, yeah.
No, but yeah, here we use math in our business also. I mean, we're talking about budgeting where people come to us, they say, I know I'm making money, I don't know where it goes every month. So the first step is just to do an analysis and just to do a budget, put those math numbers together. Once you see on paper what's going on, it clarifies a lot of information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also I find the three easiest ways for someone to start saving money and to attack really three avenues. Number one, I always find is insurance premiums are usually very, very high, and people don't even know that they can. It is math because like, okay, what's my income versus my expenses? Okay, so I can raise my income. I could try to make more money. Great, that's really important. But also, you have to also lower your costs, and that's in companies and personal and everything. So first, it's like, okay, let's shop your insurance, shop your cars. Can you lower money on your car expense because that's usually a serious number, and on the third side, your travel. Like, how much is it the difference between an Airbnb versus a hotel, and what about points? What about other avenues so you can actually live a more affordable life and live in your lifestyle so you can actually attain those goals? And it comes down to math, which I like that you started with. So you went from this math background and teaching math and learning how to scale. How did you get to the next stage?
Okay, so obviously if you're Persian, you either have to be an attorney or a doctor, right? There's no other path.
Correct.
So I chose to be a doctor, but I became a chiropractor. So I became a chiropractor and I opened up a business. And first thing was I wanted the business to be super successful. And so I hired coaches. I did everything that I could possibly do. And within the first year, I think it was 9 months after graduation, I opened up my first business. And in that practice, I did everything that all of my coaches were telling me, my business coaches, my chiropractic coaches were telling me, and I actually built a really successful practice. While building that practice in the first 3 years, I completely burnt out because I had built a business that I had ultimately become a slave to, and I couldn't walk away from it if I wanted to. I couldn't take a long vacation. I didn't have kids at the time, but if I wanted to have kids and like have a family life or go on vacation or travel or have any kind of, I didn't have any level of freedom. I had built this thing that on paper it looked really good, but it was really golden handcuffs that I had built.
No quality of life. There was no quality of life. And when we were chatting before we started the podcast, that was one of the areas that actually really perked me up, because you talked about time management and not being a slave. Because we were talking with someone the other day, and he's talked about, envisioning how you want to be. Do you want to you're making $100,000 a year this year. Now you're going to $1 million. Do you want to do that? But, I'm saying, you and I are discussing, I don't want to be a slave to that. I know what work it's going to take to get to that $1 million. That's not really what I want to do. Mm-hmm. That's not the quality. I mean, I'm at, a certain age of life that, I'm trying to slow down. Your ear doesn't always let me, but that's what I want to do.
He tries to sneak away the slowing down, and I bring it back in. I go, wake up. Let's go.
Very annoying.
Keeps you young.
I don't know about that. How young do I want to be?
That's the ultimate question. It's, where do you want to see your youth? So you burn out, and that's such a common scenario. It's very, very profound, very honest of you for saying. So then you go, okay, well, how most people will go, well, I burnt out. Let me go work for somebody because we have to pay our bills, and it is very shameful. Like, I have the concept that, like, we're dealing with this doctor right now, and he's completely burnt out. Like, he saw somebody die in front of him, and he really burnt out, and he can't practice medicine anymore. Went through an anxiety attack, whole 9 yards, and it's really bad. And the question is, like, okay, well, most people will just go work for somebody else, go work for a chiropractic office, and just be done with it. How did you get into coaching, and why did you find that coaching was the right path for you?
For me, wasn't that I actually could not walk away from my practice because it was also successful. So while I was burnt out, I'm actually trapped in this whole thing that I have built up because it was paying my bills. It was giving me a lifestyle that, yes, I didn't have the time to live it, but it was giving me so much safety and security at the same time. So one of the hardest things that I did was in that business, look at my numbers, look at my life, and go, I don't want to settle for having the financial freedom but not having the actual freedom. But at the same time, I think there's a possibility out there for me to hit the numbers that I do want to hit in business and scale my business and generate more and open up maybe 3 other locations and maybe tap into other businesses. Is there a possibility that I could do all of those things and not spend as much time and energy in the business? This was a radical shift in my mindset. So it was, and I remember it specifically. I went to I live between Laguna Beach and Italy, but I went to the beach here. I had a long lunch break. Chiropractors have really long lunch breaks. I went to the beach. I took my journal and I was like, what is it that I want to experience in life, right? Like, initially it was like, can I hit the $1 million mark and have freedom at the same time and be able to walk away from it? Can I set up my business in a way that I'm not the owner, I am the CEO of it, and then I can multiply? So I sat down and
that takes a lot of courage. I've been in situations myself over the years, even as a W-2 employee. You're making a good salary, but your boss is miserable, and you hate to go to the office every day. There's a lot of people, clients of ours, that are like that. You hate to go to the office every day. You wake up with anxiety every morning, but you got those golden handcuffs because, it's not easy to find another job. If you're a W-2, you're in a good position, at least because you were your own boss. But for many of our clients that, you don't have that kind of options, means that you have to go and find another job. And, the older you get, the harder it is. And the more, and the scarier, the scarier it is. So I've been in like at least 3 positions, like I can think of, that I hate my boss. I hate the environment because it's toxic. But what can I do? I got 6 kids. I got I got tuitions. I got mortgages. I got the food to put on the table, and it's scary. It's very scary to make that change.
And it really was. It was. Even to this day, I go. That was the scariest jump that I have done, and it really was a quantum leap. So, but the first thing I had to do was sit down, and design a life in which, like, design this possibility from a mindset perspective that it is possible for me to start 3 other businesses, which I ultimately did. Build a practice that later I actually started a mastermind called a part-time $1 million mastermind, because I use these business principles and mindset principles. But at the time, on that day on the beach, I go, can I build a business for which I can work part-time, still hit my first million at the time, and open up 3 other locations, tap into all these other, and be able to go on vacation and world school my kids. And the one dream I had was to live bicontinentally and learn new languages, and sort of be able to live life at the same time. Leverage business to give me the life that I want to live, instead of let's just get in business and see what kind of life is what's left over that I can live. So once I saw that possibility as a vision, then I started to see the steps that I could take, and the mindset shift that happened that quantum leaped my entire life then. And I've been able to do it over and over again. So fast forward in that process, after that jump, I shifted my practice and the way that I was doing things to go from, being the practice manager working in the business into working on the business, then becoming the CEO. I started 3 locations for a weight loss company. Then I took them virtual, and a whole bunch of other things. And now, with my kids, I live between Italy and Southern California, and I have the freedom while being able to scale my businesses. And I think if there's one thing I could leave Earth telling people, especially those who are living within the matrix of, like, you do this and then you do this and then you do that, is there's a possibility out there for you to experience whatever it is that you want to experience. For me, it was freedom to be able to contribute the way I want to contribute to the world, and be with my kids and be with my family and do the things that I love to do.
Yeah, so let's talk about the actual tangible items that somebody can do to gain this success that you found.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the first stage for a business owner to switch from working from in the business to working on the business?
Okay, this will surprise you, and it might not sound like a tangible, practical step to take, but is the most important step to take, because I believe everybody has a thermostat for what they are generating and how they are operating. So if you take a look at the patterns of how someone has been showing up in their business, if they have a belief system that you have to work really hard in order to have any level of meaningful success, if that's the old pattern, then I could give them their dream business and their dream life on a silver platter. I could literally be like, here it is. You just plug in, and here are the things that you do. Just sustain this business or just sustain this lifestyle. But if they have that old pattern, they're going to self-sabotage themselves right back into that. And they're going to create more work in the business, or they're going to crash the numbers, right, in terms of collections and productions. So the very first tangible step would actually be to set a vision for where they are headed, because the nervous system right now, wherever you might be in this frequency, in this energetic space, the mindset is, I can only generate this much, and if I generate more, then I'm going to have to work harder, or whatever the case might be. And that mindset is not allowing you to get to a level where you would experience freedom and, in all the different areas. So the first and foundational thing that I teach to all of my students in my memberships and my masterminds, online, on social media, is you need to have a vision for your dream life and the numbers that you want to hit. You need to get your nervous system really comfortable with those. And the way that you do that is by mentally rehearsing that life vision and giving it to your nervous system, so that your nervous system goes, oh, this is comfortable. I can do this. And it doesn't self-sabotage you back to where you were before and the old patterns.
Yeah, it's training yourself, and it's training yourself that it's actually possible. It's like what you think is your limitations. It's breaking that glass ceiling, which is very clear.
Mhm.
How do you specifically do that? Because it's very easy and it's very hard to execute.
Mm. The
Can you give a few tips on actually how to do that?
Yeah, so there's three. I'll give more of a clarification. There's three sets of goals that you could be setting. Okay. So a goal or a vision that you could have. The first kind of goal or vision that you could have is what we have heard of, which is SMART goals, right? They're measurable, they're realistic, and majority business owners and entrepreneurs are already doing that. The criteria for SMART goals really is that you know how to get there. So if you told me, I want to take my business to this next level and I already know the steps that I need to take, here are my action steps, here's my strategy. You get to work, you do it. If you have enough discipline, you're going to get there. True?
Yeah.
So that would be like a SMART goal or a SMART vision. The second category would be an inspired goal. So an inspired goal is something you don't know how to do, or a vision where you're like, I don't know how to do, but I can figure it out. So you could say, here's an inspired goal that I have. I don't know how to do this, but maybe I know somebody who's done it. Maybe I can call so and so and say, hey, how did you do that? Or I can YouTube it, or I can Google it, or I can figure it out. So that would be an inspired goal or vision. So if you're going to evaluate where you are headed in your business or in your life, I would move away from SMART goals and I would move into inspired visions, because that's where you're going to have human growth, and evolution in your process as well. Because if it's something you don't know how to get there, then you're going to become somebody different to get to that next level. And then there's a third level. In the third level, this is called the unreachable dream vision. This is where there's two criterias and you go, there's, I have no freaking idea how to get there. Like that's kind of where I was that day at the beach when I wrote down the things that I wanted to do. I go, no idea freaking how to freaking get there. I don't know anyone who's done these things with this level of freedom. And
I don't know which way to go. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. All that stuff is all questions that people are going to have.
Yes. And the second piece of it, thank you for that. It triggered something. It's the second piece of it is there's a voice in the back of your head that goes, you can't get there. Like that's not possible.
It's true.
It's always the thing that holds people back is that who are you to think that you can do this? Who are you to think that, that's the voice you've got to not listen to. That's the voice you've got to seal off.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly, so it's the first thing I have my entrepreneurs do is evaluate what they already have and go, which category does this fit into? Is this something I know I can do? Okay, then that's the first category. That's not going to help you quantum leap. Does it fit into the second category where I can figure out how to do? Okay, that's better. But is there possibly a version of a vision for life and business where you're like, I have no freaking idea. And like David said, who am I to think that I could even get to that next level? And then designing and writing that down like a life script. And I call it an elevated life script. And I teach this inside of my membership where it's like, write down what your day and your life and your business is going to look like when you're already at this level, and then give that to your nervous system over and over and over again.
I agree. I actually think it's like the concept of manifesting. It's like you really need to train yourself to constantly be able to be more successful over time. Like it's really, really hard, but it's super crucial. When someone is going through this process, okay, so that now they've decided they're going to do it. They have it's really a confidence thing and training their mindset to actually be able to do it. Now they're trying to scale, and then they get to a point that they're burnt out. How do you fight that burnout, and how do you prevent the burnout?
Mm-hmm. So, and that's such a good question, because I was just working with somebody right before our call, and she told me that she wanted to have her first $1 million business, right? So like she's setting this goal, and I had her write her life vision and I had her write her business vision. Okay. So in the business, she goes, I'm making $1 million. I'm collecting this much. I am seeing this many clients. And so she has all the different pieces of it. She's describing what kind of life this is going to give to her and her husband and her 2 kids. And I had to pause her and I go, I know so many $1 million business owners, okay, multi-million-dollar business owners who do not have a healthy version of that business. So then I encouraged her to start to think and feel about what this business would look like if it was a really healthy business. Could you generate multiple millions, but also have an overhead of multiple millions and be broke? Could you generate multiples of million? Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
You look at your revenue, oh, I'm making $1 million, but your expenses are 1.1. And I tell you the truth, a lot of times I'll talk to people, they don't even know what their expenses are. When I was in the jewelry business, I would deal with manufacturers, and it's very difficult to know exactly what the overhead is, the expenses. They were working with Avon and making these like 50,000 pieces would be the orders. But then at the end of the day, they would realize they didn't make any money. They actually ended up losing money. Mm-hmm. Because again, you've got to do that number crunching. You got to go back to your math roots. Hire that kid that you were hiring to teach somebody, to tell you how to do that. I mean, it's so important.
Yes, it's so important. And I think there's always going to be there's 2 components to building a business like that. One is the mechanics, which is what a lot of what you're referring to, David, which is like figure out what your numbers look like. What is the KPI for the business? What are the stats? What are you collecting? What's your overhead? And all of those pieces. And then the other piece of it is the energetic piece of it. Like to this girl, I go, well, what would a healthy business look like? What do you want it to, what kind of lifestyle do you want it to allow to give you? And so to wrap that conversation up, there are 3 categories when you write out an entire business or life vision. You write out, okay, 3 categories. One is wealth, right? Like what's the wealth of the business? What is it generating? How is it producing money? Does it add up? Do the numbers add up? Like what you're saying, David, like if you say I want $1 million and you're charging each of your clients $50, well, that's going to take a whole lot of clients. And is that even physically possible? Like do the math, right? Going back to the math. But there's that piece of it, and that needs to go in the wealth. What kind of lifestyle does it give you? Then there's the health of your clinic. So to prevent burnout, then you go, what does the health of my business, my practice, my life, what does that look like? Well, if it's ease, and if it's joyful, and if it's fulfilling, and if it's giving me all of those things, then it's a healthy business. And then, of course, there's the area of connection. What kinds of connections?
I actually want to stop at that point, and I think it's really crucial that talking about you didn't talk about like, is it making you money? Is it this? Is it that? It's like, is it giving you satisfaction? And that allows for motivation. And that's where the business actually will become more successful. I find that really, really important because it wasn't talking about like, is it giving you that Porsche and Ferrari that you were always dreaming of? Because I actually don't think it does. Like something like there's something about being happy and satisfied in a business that will actually make you more successful. And then I meant to interrupt you, but
just to go on with that. I mean, I think what you're saying, like what I look at is in terms of making like a business model. Many times I wanted to go in my own business and create my own business. I didn't know what to do. You got to see if the economic model makes sense, right? Like if you can only, like if you're a dry cleaner, right, and you can only make money by being there, 23 hours a day with the kids coming afterwards, and that's the only way you're going to make money that way. That's not going to lead to a healthy choice. Like some of these, and I think it's pretty well documented, a lot of immigrants they'll come over, they'll have like a corner grocery store, but they're there all the time. That's the only way they make a lot of money, but they're there all the time. But for them, it's okay. But, if that's what the economic model tells you has to work, then right away you're starting behind the 8 ball.
100%. And I think most people do it that way. Most people don't jump into business without thinking about what they want to experience in life. Like you guys were saying, like the joy of living and being present with your children, the joy of having time to contribute, the fulfillment of things. They don't really think about all of that. They just kind of jump into business. They're 3 years in like I was, they're 10 years and 20 years in, and then they're already burnt out. So it's really about getting intentional about how you want life to look like and allowing your business to give that to you. And like you're saying, David, if the economic model does not give you that life, then that might not be the one to do. Or you might need to change the model or create a different thing.
You know what? You also have to schedule that time off, right? You have to make sure, like here over the last 6 months, you've scheduled built-in time that you're off. You're not going to take that call at 8 o'clock at night anymore. You're not taking that call on Sundays anymore, even though I do. But you're not. You've got kids. You can't do it anymore. It's not feasible. You got it built in that downtime, and there's nothing wrong with that. And taking off that time.
Yeah, it was always an issue at the beginning of my career. I think, Dad, before even you came in, I called. No, I think actually when you first started, that I would call you. Like, I'm burnt out. Like, I can't do anything right now. And you're like, you got to take vacation. Everyone's like, you got to take vacation. It's like, I can't. And then COVID actually really helped me understand that I don't have to work this hard. We don't have to see people at 9 o'clock at night. Like, if they don't want to be serious, then they won't be serious. Like how many times we went to meetings at 8, 9 o'clock at night that we're trying to sell somebody else something, and they're like, oh, well, I actually don't want to buy it. So it's like, okay, well, I wasted all this time.
That manager from ShopRite.
Yeah. We
went
went
out
to a
there. He said
manager.
the guys were pulling in. He says, "Oh, I just texted you not to come."
Yeah, like really. Yeah, it was really like annoying, like so much of that stuff all the time. But it really helps. Um, Nona, do you have that moment in your life that allowed you to learn these things, that allowed you to push through even when things were challenging, instead of just quitting when most people would quit?
It's something I learned early on when I was 16 and I moved to the United States. I was really thrown into high school 2 weeks after I'd moved. Like, I probably was still jet lagged. I probably hadn't figured anything out. They just threw me into high school. Funny story, my uncles and my aunts who lived here in the United States for 20 plus years, they all had a very thick Persian accent. And I remember thinking, of course, right? And so I remember thinking, I'm 15, 16 years old, and I was like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to have an accent when I
You
grow
know
up.
why? Because they speak in Persian all the downtime. It's that they only speak in Persian to each other. My wife's grandmother, she was like Persian. They only spoke with her kids in Persian, and it was all Farsi.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, they don't make it. They don't care. They don't want to have any effort. They don't want to make any effort.
Yes. So,
It's too late. They're too old already. It's too. It's. I had to when I immigrated, I had to learn U.S. English from Canada.
US,
It was really challenging. You really struggled, Dad. That was really tough.
what a hard time.
We both have had our difficulties when we came to this country.
Yeah. So with that in mind, like, I don't know if it was vanity or what, I don't want the accent, but I was like, I'm going to learn English. I'm going to learn, like you call it, US English. I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to learn it like there's no tomorrow, and I'm going to have zero accent. So one of the decisions I made early on was I'm not going to hang out with the Persians at school, and I'm going to have to sink or swim. And it was hard because I could have easily gone and spoken Farsi and been in those groups. But I was like, no, I learned the power of sink or swim. Really, that's what it was. So when you ask me the question, well, like, how do you deal with these? It's like, okay, you just face them head on, knowing that on the other side of it, you're speaking English fine, and nobody, or you head on the challenge, knowing on the other side of it, even though this is what I'm facing right now, on the other side of it, there is pleasure. On the other side of it, there is fulfillment. The sink or swim, really powerful for me.
I agree. Nona, where can people find you? How can people get connected with you? How can people sign up for your course?
Probably the best way to learn more about me is on my website, which is elevate.me, and that's spelled Elivate. But I'm also a lot on social media. I create a lot of content on Instagram. So if this is at all entertaining or interesting, then connect with me on Instagram. And I have some free sources on Instagram also.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. Thank you for listening. I hope you got a lot from this episode about mindset, getting yourself prepared. I think that's really the most important step. It's like entrepreneurship is a mindset, and it's you need to have your infrastructure set up before you actually go out and do it first. And I feel like that's really missing in today's age. It's what will it take to be successful, and knowing the mindset that it
The
will
big
take.
message I hear from Nona is that you don't have to kill yourself for it.
Correct. Correct. I agree with that. And it's not healthy burning out. It's just not, it's not the right way. I know it's not sleeping is not healthy. Like all these, like thinking that, oh, I'm just going to eat chips for lunch. Like you need to really structure yourself. You need to really take care of yourself, and then give yourself a healthy mind and a healthy life. I know that my dad eats a lot of chips, but
I don't eat
he
a lot of
literally,
chips. I have one bag of chips, and all of a sudden it's a lot of
how
chips.
about this? You eat a lot of potatoes in unhealthy forms.
That has nothing to do with myself. My wife, who's half Persian, that's her job.
No, it's not. You don't have to order. She doesn't work at the restaurants in the kitchen with the French fry maker.
Potato.
That's what it is. It's a lot of potatoes.
I'm Ashkenazi. What can you want? This is me.
Oh, yeah. You can make any excuse you want in the books.
I am, and I continue to.
I'm proud of it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. We'll see you on the next one. And thank you, Nona, for coming on and sharing your story and being so open with our audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Of course.